Perplexed and troubled at his bad success, the tempter stood, nor had what to reply, discovered in his fraud, thrown from his hope, so oft, and the persuasive rhetoric that sleeked his tongue, and won so much on Eve, so little here, nay lost, but Eve was Eve. This far his overmatch, who self-deceived and rash beforehand, had no better weighed the strength he was to cope with, or his own. But as a man who had been matchless held in cunning, overreached where least he thought, to salve his credit and for very spite, still will be tempting him, who foils him still, and never cease, though to his shame the more. Or as a swarm of flies in vintage time, about the wine-press where the sweet mouse is poured, beat off, returns as oft with humming sound, or surging waves against a solid rock. Though all to shivers dashed, the assault renew. Vain battery, and in froth or bubbles end, so Satan, whom repulse upon repulse met ever, and to shameful silence brought, yet gives not o'er, though desperate of success, and his vain importunity pursues. He brought our Saviour to the western side of that high mountain, whence he might behold another plain, long but in breadth not wide, washed by the southern sea, and on the north to equal length backed with a ridge of hills that screened the fruits of the earth and seats of men from cold septentrian blasts. Thence in the midst, divided by a river, of whose banks on each side an imperial city stood, with towers and temples proudly elevate, on 7 small hills, with palaces adorned, porches and theatres, baths, aqueducts, statues and trophies, and triumphal arcs. Gardens and groves presented to his eyes, above the height of mountains interposed. What strange parallax or optic skill of vision multiplied through air or glass of telescope, were curious to inquire, and now the tempter thus his silence broke. The city which thou seest, no other deem than great and glorious Rome, queen of the earth, so far renowned, and with the spoils enriched of nations. There the capital thou seest, above the rest, lifting his stately head on the Tarpeian rock, her citadel impregnable, and there Mount Palatine, the imperial palace, compassed huge, and high the structure, skill of noblest architects, with gilded battlements, conspicuous far, turrets and terraces, and glittering spires. Many a fair edifice besides, more like houses of gods. So well I have disposed my airy microscope, thou mayest behold outside and inside both, pillars and roofs, carved work, the hand of famed artificers, in cedar, marble, ivory, or gold. Thence to the gates cast round thine eye, and see what conflux issuing forth or entering in. Praetors, proconsuls to their province, hasting or on return in robes of state. Lictors and rods, the ensigns of their power, legions and cohorts, terms of horses and wings, or embassies from regions far remote, in various habits, on the Appian road, or on the Aemilian, some from farthest south, Cyane, and where the shadow both way falls, Maro Nilotic Isle, and more to west, the realm of Bacchus to the Blackmore Sea, from the Asian kings, and Parthian among these, from India and the golden Chersonese, and utmost Indian isle Taprobane, dusk faces with white silken turbans wreathed, from Gallia, Gades, and the British West, Germans and Scythians, and Sarmatians north beyond Danubis, to the Tauric pool. All nations now to Rome obedience pay, to Rome's great emperor, whose wide domain and ample territory, wealth and power, civility of manners, arts, and arms, and long renown, thou justly mayest prefer before the Parthian. These 2 thrones accept, the rest are barbarous, and scarce worth the sight, shared among petty kings too far removed. These having shown thee, I have shown thee all the kingdoms of the world, and all their glory. This emperor hath no son, and now is old and lascivious, and from Rome retired to Caprae, an island small but strong, on the Campanian shore, with purpose there his horrid lusts in private to enjoy, committing to a wicked favourite all public cares, and yet of him suspicious, hated of all and hating, with what ease, endued with regal virtues as thou art, appearing and beginning noble deeds, mightst thou expel this monster from his throne, now made a sty, and in his place ascending a victor people, free from servile yoke. And with my help thou mayest, to me the power is given, and by that right I give it thee. Aim therefore at no less than all the world, aim at the highest. Without the highest attained, will be for thee no sitting, or not long on David's throne, be prophesied what will. To whom the Son of God unmoved replied, Nor doth this grandeur and majestic show of luxury, though called magnificence, much then of arms before allure mine eye, much less my mind, though thou shouldst add to tell their sumptuous gluttonies and gorgeous feasts on citron tables or Atlantic stone. For I have also heard, perhaps have read, their wines of Scythia, Cales, and Falerne, and Chios and Crete, how they quaff in gold, crystal, and myrrhine cups embossed with gems and studs of pearl. To me shouldst tell, who thirst and hunger still, than embassies thou show'st from nations far and nigh. What honour that but tedious waste of time, to sit and hear so many hollow compliments and lies, outlandish flatteries? Then proceeds to talk of the emperor, how easily subdued, how gloriously I shall, thou sayest, expel a brutish monster. What if I withal expel a devil, who first made him such? Let his tormentor conscience find him out. For him I was not sent, nor yet to free that people victor once, now vile and base, deservedly made vassal, who once just, frugal, and mild, and temperate conquered well, but govern ill the nations under yoke, peeling their provinces, exhausted all by lust and rapine. First ambitious grown of triumph that insulting vanity, then cruel by their sports to turn to blood inured, of fighting beasts, and men to beasts exposed, luxurious by their wealth, and greedier still, and from the daily scene effeminate. What wise and valiant man would seek to free these thus degenerate, by themselves enslaved, or could of inward slaves make outward free? Know therefore, when my season comes to sit on David's throne, it shall be like a tree spreading and overshadowing all the earth, or as a stone that shall to pieces dash all monarchies besides throughout the world, and of my kingdom there shall be no end. Means there shall be to this, but what the means is not for thee to know, nor me to tell. To whom the tempter, impudent, replied, I see all offers made by me, how slight thou valuest, because offered, and reject'st. Nothing will please the difficult and nice, or nothing more than still to contradict. On the other side, know also thou that I on what I offer set as high esteem, nor what I part with mean to give for naught. All these which in a moment thou beholdst, the kingdoms of the world, to thee I give, for given to me, I give to whom I please, no trifle, yet with this reserve, not else, on this condition, if thou wilt fall down and worship me as thy superior lord, easily done, and hold them all of me, for what can less so great a gift deserve? Whom thus our Saviour answered with disdain, I never liked thy talk, thy offers less, now both abhor, since thou hast dared to utter the abominable terms, impious condition. But I endure the time, till which expired thou hast permission on me. It is written, the first of all commandments, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and only him shalt serve. And darest thou to the Son of God propound to worship thee accursed, now more accursed for this attempt bolder than that on Eve, and more blasphemous, which expect to rue. The kingdoms of the world to thee were given, permitted rather, and by thee usurped. Other donation none thou canst produce, if given by whom but by the King of kings, God over all supreme. If given to thee, by thee how fairly is the giver now repaid. But gratitude in thee is lost, long since. Wert thou so void of fear or shame as offer them to me the Son of God, to me my own, on such abhorred pact, that I fall down and worship thee as God. Get thee behind me. Plain thou now appearest, that evil one, Satan forever damned. To whom the fiend, with fear abashed, replied, Be not so sore offended, Son of God. Though sons of God, both angels are and men. If I'd to try whether in higher sort than these thou bearest that title have proposed, what both from men and angels I receive, tetrarchs of fire, air, flood, and on the earth nations besides, from all the quartered winds, God of this world invoked, and world beneath, who then thou art, whose coming is foretold, to me so fatal, me it most concerns. The trial hath indamaged thee no way, rather more honor left, and more esteem, me not advantaged, missing what I aimed. Therefore let pass, as they are transitory, the kingdoms of this world. I shall no more advise thee, gain them as thou canst, or not. And thou thyself seemst otherwise inclined than to a worldly crown, addicted more to contemplation and profound dispute, as by that early action may be judged, when slipping from thy mother's eye thou wentst alone into the temple. There was found among the gravest rabbis, disputant on points and questions fitting Moses' chair, teaching not taught, the childhood shows the man, as morning shows the day. Be famous then by wisdom, as thy empire must extend, so let extend thy mind o'er all the world. In knowledge all things in it comprehend. All knowledge is not couched in Moses' law, the Pentateuch, or what the prophets wrote. The Gentiles also know, and write and teach to admiration, led by nature's light. And with the Gentiles much thou must converse, ruling them by persuasion as thou meanst. Without their learning, how wilt thou with them, or they with thee, hold conversation meet? How wilt thou reason with them? How refute their idealisms, traditions, paradoxes? Error by his own arms is best evinced. Look once more, ere we leave this specular mount, westward, but much nearer by southwest, behold, where on the Aegean shore a city stands, built nobly, pure the air, and light the soil, Athens, the eye of Greece, mother of arts and eloquence, native to famous wits, or hospitable in her sweet recess, city or suburban, studious walks and shades. See there the olive grove of Academy, Plato's retirement, where the Attic bird trills her thick warbled notes the summer long. There flowery hill Hymettus, with the sound of bees industrious, murmur oft invites to studious musing. There Elysius rolls his whispering stream. Within the walls then view the schools of ancient sages, his who bred great Alexanders to subdue the world, Lyceum there, and painted Stoa next. There thou shalt hear and learn the secret power of harmony and tones and numbers hit, by voice or hand, and various measured verse, Aeolian charms, and Dorian lyric odes, and his who gave them breath, but higher sung, blind Melesigenes, thence Homer called, whose poem Phoebus challenged for his own. Thence what the lofty grave tragedians taught in chorus or iambic, teachers best of moral prudence, with delight received in brief sententious precepts, while they treat of fate and chance and change in human life, high actions and high passions best describing. Thence to the famous orators repair, those ancient, whose resistless eloquence wielded at will that fierce Democracy, shook the arsenal and full mind over Greece, to Macedon and Artaxerxes' throne. To sage philosophy next lend thine ear, from heaven descended to the low-roofed house of Socrates. See there his tenement, whom well inspired the oracle pronounced, wisest of men, from whose mouth issued forth mellifluous streams that watered all the schools of academics old and new, with those surnamed Peripatetics, and the sect Epicurean, and the Stoic severe. These here revolve, or as thou likest, at home, till time mature thee to a kingdom's weight. These rules will render thee a king complete, within thyself, much more with empire joined. To whom our Saviour sagely thus replied, Think not but that I know these things, or think I know them not. Not therefore am I short of knowing what I ought. He who receives light from above, from the fountain of light, no other doctrine needs, though granted true. But these are false, or little else but dreams, conjectures, fancies, built on nothing firm. The first and wisest of them all professed to know this only, that he nothing knew. The next to fabling fell, and smooth conceits. A third sort doubted all things, though plain sense. Others in virtue placed felicity. But virtue joined with riches and long life, in corporeal pleasure he and careless ease, the Stoic last, in philosophic pride, by him called virtue, and his virtuous man, wise, perfect in himself, and all-possessing, equal to God, oft shames not to prefer as fearing God nor man, contemning all, wealth, pleasure, pain, or torment, death, and life, which when he lists he leaves, or boasts he can, for all his tedious talk is but vain boast, or subtle shifts, conviction to evade. Alas, what can they teach and not mislead, ignorant of themselves, of God much more? And how the world began, and how man fell, degraded by himself, on grace depending. Much of the soul they talk, but all awry, and in themselves seek virtue, and to themselves all glory arrogate. To God give none, rather accuse him under usual names, fortune and fate, as one regardless quite of mortal things, who therefore seeks in these true wisdom, finds her not, or by delusion far worse, her false resemblance only meets an empty cloud. However many books wise men have said are wearisome, who reads incessantly, and to his reading brings not a spirit and judgment equal or superior, and what he brings, what needs he elsewhere seek, uncertain and unsettled still remains. Deep versed in books and shallow in himself, crude or intoxicate, collecting toys and trifles for choice matters, worth a sponge, as children gathering pebbles on the shore. Or if I would delight my private hours with music or with poem, where so soon as in our native language can I find that solace? All our law and story strowed, with hymns, our psalms with artful terms inscribed, our Hebrew songs and harps in Babylon, that pleased so well our victor's ear, declare that rather Greece from us these arts derived, ill imitated, while they loudest sing the vices of their deities, and their own in fable, hymn, or song, so personating their gods ridiculous, and themselves past shame, remove their swelling epithets, thick laid as varnish on a harlot's cheek, the rest, thin sown with aught of profit or delight, will far be found unworthy to compare with Sion's songs, to all true tastes excelling, where God is praised aright, and godlike men the holiest of holies, and his saints, such are from God inspired, not such from thee. Unless where moral virtue is expressed by light of nature, not in all quite lost, their orators thou then extolst, as those the top of eloquence, statists indeed, and lovers of their country, as may seem, but herein to our prophets far beneath, as men divinely taught and better teaching the solid rules of civil government, in their majestic unaffected style. Then all the oratory of Greece and Rome in them is plainest taught and easiest learnt. What makes a nation happy and keeps it so, what ruins kingdoms and lays cities flat. These only, with our law, best form a king.